welcome to the Kentucky Gateway Museum Center Research Library. This is where people come to do research, whether it's genealogical or historical. Would you like to take a tour? Come with me. This is our atlas and plat map area. Particularly unique and interesting is the 1876 atlas of Mason County, Kentucky. If you get out in the county, particularly like the Washington area, you can find where someone lived, perhaps your relative, and you can see who lived around them. We also have atlases and plat maps of other areas. Also, we have the 1959 cemetery map for Maysville and Mason County. Even though it's the 1959 and it is somewhat outdated, you can still get an overview of the cemetery and how it's laid out. We also have part of it on the other wall over on this side. Our cemetery records are updated, but you would need to go to a file or a book to see that. Our library serves the 7-county region: Bracken, Fleming, Lewis, Mason, Robertson in Kentucky, and Adams and Brown in Ohio. You have to remember that so much happened back and forth across the river. Our microfilm section is broken down by county: Bracken, Fleming, Lewis, Mason, Robertson in Kentucky. You'll notice that the counties of Bracken, Fleming, Lewis, and Robertson have fewer items on microfilm. We have newspapers, marriages, and wills. But then when you get to Mason County, we also have circuit court records, county court records, mortgages, real estates, deeds, and of course the marriages and wills as well. The newspaper section for Mason County begins in 1797. Do we have every issue of every paper since then? No. But we do have a wonderful representation of papers between then and now. We also have Kentucky death certificates, 1911 through 1964. There were no death certificates prior to 1911, nor were there birth certificates prior to that. You might have to find it in on a census record and count back, or you can maybe find it in an obituary in other ways, but there were no birth certificates or death certificates prior to 1911. We also have Mason County tax lists that run very early. Then we come to the Adams County, Brown County, Ohio, and other Ohio information in this cabinet. Now also, we have Draper papers. And if you're not familiar with Mr. Draper, he thought that we were losing our pioneer history, so he started to save everything pioneer history. Muster rolls, letters, newspapers, obituaries, handwritten accounts. So it's a very valuable tool. We have the index here, and then we have the rolls of film in the cabinet. They're a little difficult to use, but if you're looking for that early period of, say, the 1780s through about 1830 to 1850, this is a good place to look. Then we get into fiction, biography, African American section, non-fiction general topics such as railroad, Masonic, churches, just general topics in the non-fiction area. Then we come to family history section. These are family histories that have been composed by private individuals and donated. This is kind of like the prehistoric ancestry.com, where people were actually recording their family history in books and notebooks rather than on the internet. Can there be discrepancies or incorrections? Absolutely. But that's just part of the human error. So if you have a supporting document, you're good to go. Otherwise, I would take it as a hint to verify. Then we get into immigration, war, states that they might have come through. Then we come to the counties prior to Mason County alphabetically, such as Bracken, Fleming, Lewis. Do we have other information on counties other than just those 7 counties that I mentioned? Yes, but not as much. This is where the Mason County section starts. We have city directories beginning with 1860, running through 1974. We also have phone books in the back, so if someone's looking for an address of a relative, an ancestor, then they can come to the books, look them up, find the city address, and then go find the home. If it's still there. If not, something else may be built in its spot. We also have deed grantee grantor indexes. Then you would go to the microfilm to look up after you find it in the index. This is sort of the Mason County section, everything Mason County. We have the Washington area, the early limestone history, so on and so forth. Then we have census records, cemetery records, church records, index to wills, deed abstracts, so on and so forth. It's hard for me to point out every little thing that we have, but come in and we'll be glad to show you. This is the area of counties after Mason County, such as Nicholas and Robertson and so on and so forth. Now we come to a gold mine. This is our obituary section. We have over 100,000 to date in alphabetical order. So if you come in looking for an ancestor or a relative and you don't have a date of their death, you can still look by alphabetical name and see if they're in there. If you look and you don't find the obituary but you have a date, then you can go to the newspaper and look. But it's a great tool. It's also good to look through every name because you might find someone you didn't even know you're looking for, or a lateral relative may give you more information going back through the family history than actually the original person you were looking for. We also offer Ancestry.com and Find a Grave. As you will see on the screen, we have come into the search section of Ancestry. We do offer the library edition, which gives you a little more information than just the regular home edition that most people get. Important with this is to look up someone who is deceased. Sometimes you can get records on someone who's still living. However, it would probably be a census record or something like that, and census records are only released until 1940. So anything after that, we don't really have records on. But if your relative is deceased, you can come in and look. It's important to bring their name, their full name if you know it, and if you know their birth, marriage, and death dates, as well as places, that is very helpful. Any and all information you can bring in helps us to narrow down and search for that person and find more information about them. And this is our lower stack area, which or sometimes we refer to as the back room, which houses additional information to that of the library. In this area, we have our files. We have over 30,000 files, reference, cross-reference files from which we can pull information. It can be about a person, place, or a thing. This happens to be a business file, and we can go back through and look up some of the old businesses and the information about them. We also have cemetery files and church files and people files and so on and so forth. On around in this area, we have our map cases. This holds our oversized information, such as photographs. You can see that they're very nicely encapsulated to keep them preserved as long as possible. We keep these closed, and the light, there's less light to go in to do damage, and so on and so forth. Of particular interest to me are the family charts. I find these absolutely fascinating. And this is an old Marshall chart. Now you've got to remember that this was done before computers and that type of thing. So I find this very interesting. Here's an index to the chart on the back and all the people that are on there. Now, if we were to go on with the family history to today's time, it would probably extend way out here. This is our document box area. What is a document box? Well, let me pull one for you so you can see it. These boxes contain just a variety of information. This is probably one of my favorites. These are the Pogue labels. So these are some of the old labels that go to the Pogue distillery. So I find those very interesting. However, these boxes could hold letters, they could hold records of various things, they could hold pamphlets, brochures, just a number of things are housed in our boxes. This would be an LSDB, lower stack document box. Now we'll look at the lower stack oversized document box. So this is the oversized box. You can compare it with the smaller one. It holds a variety of information as well. This is a Snolligaster, which is a political newspaper. And as you can see, it's written in cursive, as are most of all the old documents. That's one reason it's so important to learn to read cursive. The boxes hold a variety of things. It might be an old ledger. It could be blueprints, it could be letters, so on and so forth. Just a variety of information. We have an area for old ledgers and journals and records, so to speak. One book that I have open over here is this is the 1831 page for the Dimmitt store in Germantown. It shows what they purchased and how much they paid for it. The interesting thing about this one is sometimes when people would come to this area, perhaps they wouldn't own any land, so there was no tax list. They weren't on a census, but they might have gone to Germantown and purchased something so that you can say, okay, we know they were here in this county on this day, and this is what they purchased. We also have the Lee registers right here. The old Lee house where people would come and stay. So those are valuable tools too. Most of our newspapers are on microfilm. However, before we were microfilming, we actually had them in books. So you can see some of the large books here hold various issues of the newspaper. This has to be actually 1958. This is 1962. So we have those on hand as well as records on our microfilm. If you'll step this way, we have a section for rare books. So as you can see, we have a number of rare books in our collection. Some of them are rare because of the age of the book. However, some of the others are just rare because of the rarity of the title of the book or the content of the book. We have some old Civil War letters written back and forth from 4 boys and their mother. And to me, that's one of the more interesting items that we have. Photograph section. Here's an old stereopticon card and viewer. If you've been to the movies and you've seen 3D movies, this gives you an idea of what the sort of original idea was like. We also have tintypes, which are old photographs on metal. The attention to detail in them is really quite phenomenal. This one's a little dark, but yet if you can look closely and have a magnifying glass, you can really see a lot of detail to these early photographs. The old daguerreotypes, they're quite interesting as well, and something you may not have seen. And as you'll notice, we try to keep everything as safe as possible. We keep it, in an atmospherically controlled room, as well as keeping it dark as much as possible. This is Lucy with baby Charlotte, Elizabeth Blatterman Warmall. Lucy was born at Monticello in 1811 and brought to Maysville in the 1850s. We also have photographs in the form of postcards, smaller photographs, and then they gradually get larger and larger, and so on and so forth. This is our media section over here. And that just about concludes the back room. I can't go into detail about every single thing that we have, but if you come to the library, I'd love to show you everything in person.